I wasn't supposed to be home that early. There wasn't a meeting canceled, no traffic accident to avoid. Just this strange, pressing instinct in my chest. A quiet pull, like gravity nudging me toward the house. I can't explain it better than that. One minute I was reviewing reports in my office, sipping burnt coffee, half listening to the hum of printers and fluorescent lights. The next, I was shutting down my computer without really deciding to, telling my assistant I needed the rest of the afternoon off. No real reason, just a feeling. The drive home was calm. Too calm, maybe. A late afternoon sun dipped behind the rows of sycamores that lined our street, filtering warm light through the windshield. A kind of peace that should have made me feel grateful, but instead, I just felt unsettled, like I was arriving somewhere I wasn't meant to see. It started with a reflection. I pulled into the driveway as usual, but before I even turned off the engine, something caught my eye. Movement in the neighbor's glass extension. The neighbors, the Martins, had recently renovated their place, adding a full glass sunroom that faced our house at a slight angle. In the right light, it created a mirror of our upstairs windows. I don't think I'd ever paid it much attention before. That day I did. There, perfectly reflected in the tall pane, was our bedroom. And in it stood Laura, my wife. She was near the window, half-turned, her figure backlit by the soft glow of the bedroom lamp. For a moment it was just her. But then a shift, a shape. A man stepped into view, tall and casual, like he belonged there. And then I saw it, her hand, resting gently against his chest. His hand moved to her waist. Not a pat or a friendly gesture, something slower. Familiar. Int asterisk mate. I froze. The car was still running. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe I was misreading what I saw. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe it wasn't our bedroom. But no, the bedding was unmistakable. Laura had picked out that green quilt herself. Said it reminded her of some Airbnb we stayed at in Vermont. She was always particular about details like that. I watched for maybe 10 seconds, long enough to see her smile. Not the one she used at dinner parties or when she ran into neighbors. A softer smile. The kind that wasn't meant to be seen by anyone else. Then the man stepped out of frame. I sat there for another minute, not moving. Not even breathing, I think. My fingers hovered above the ignition. A dozen thoughts tumbled over each other in my mind. Excuses, explanations, hopes, denials. Maybe it was just a hug. Maybe he was showing her something on the wall. Maybe I didn't see what I thought I saw. But deep down, I already knew. When I stepped into the house, it felt like I was walking into a theater after missing the opening act. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Laura was in the kitchen, humming something under her breath as she wiped down the counter. She wore the same oversized cardigan she always did when she worked from home. The scent of lemon cleaner filled the air, blending with whatever candle she had burning. One of those expensive ones she liked, with names like Cedar Memory or Wild Morning. She looked up, surprised or pretending to be. "You're home early," she said, smiling. "Everything okay?" I nodded, setting my keys down in the bowl near the door. "Yeah, just slow day." She walked over and kissed me on the cheek. Her lips were cool, unbothered. "Oh, by the way," she said, almost as an afterthought, "Sam stopped by earlier. From my office, he's in design. He wanted to see the closet layout upstairs. I was showing him how the built-in might fit." I said nothing, just watched her as she walked to the fridge, pulled out a pitcher of iced tea, and poured herself a glass like we weren't standing on the edge of something. "It was quick," she added, sipping. "He was just passing by. On his way to a client meeting, I think." She didn't rush through the explanation. Her voice was steady, easy, practiced maybe, but not nervous, not defensive. She didn't avoid eye contact. She didn't fidget or stammer. And that was what unsettled me most. The ease, the normalcy, the comfort in her lie or whatever it was. We went about the rest of the evening like any other Thursday. She asked if I wanted to order Thai food. We debated a movie. She told me something mildly funny about a client call that went sideways, and I laughed, or at least pretended to. But beneath it all, my mind was replaying those few seconds on a loop. The reflection, the body language, the look on her face. There was something about the way she said his name, Sam, like I should have already known him. Like it wasn't odd that a coworker would swing by our house mid-afternoon to inspect a closet. Like it was totally normal for her to walk him upstairs when I wasn't home. The thing is, Laura had never mentioned a Sam before. She talked about her job a lot. Always had. I could name half her department by heart. But Sam was new. Or maybe he wasn't. Maybe he'd been there all along, just never worth mentioning. Or maybe deliberately not mentioned. That night, lying beside her in bed, I stared at the ceiling long after she fell asleep. Her breathing was soft and even, peaceful. My eyes traced the same crack in the plaster that had been there for years, the one we never got around to fixing. Funny what details stick with you when everything else feels like it's slipping. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask any more questions. What was I supposed to say? Hey, I saw a reflection and it made me think you were having an affair? It sounded ridiculous out loud. Thin, accusatory, easy to dismiss, but still something gnawed at me. It wasn't the closeness I saw that haunted me most. It was the comfort, the casualness, the way she carried on with the evening, like nothing happened. Either she was telling the truth, or she had gotten really good at lying. And if it was the second one. When had that started? I tried to remember the last time we had been close. Truly close. Not the how was your day routine or the perfunctory goodnight kiss, but real connection. Maybe a few months ago? A quiet weekend upstate, sipping wine on the patio, playing board games. But even that now felt distant, like something that belonged to a version of us that didn't exist anymore. Was this the beginning? Or had I missed it entirely? As I lay there, the ceiling still staring back at me, a strange calm settled over me. Not peace exactly. Something heavier, like the quiet before a storm. That's when I realized something had shifted. I didn't know exactly what it was yet, but I knew, deep in my gut, that the reflection I saw wasn't the mistake. Believing her might be. In the days that followed, I tried to forget what I saw. Tried to file it away in that mental drawer labeled probably nothing, where all the unexplained things in a relationship go to fade. But the mind doesn't work like that. At least mine didn't. Instead of fading, the moment sharpened. It branched out like cracks in a windshield, each thread connecting to something else. Some other memory, some past moment I had ignored, misunderstood, or chosen not to examine too closely. I began to realize that what I'd seen in the reflection wasn't an isolated moment. It was a flare, and suddenly I could see the smoke that had been rising for months. Take her morning walks. That alone wouldn't be suspicious. But Laura hated the outdoors. She had always called herself allergic to mornings. Used to joke that if the sun didn't rise after 10 a.m., she'd be fine. Her gym membership had been collecting dust for months. And yet, 2 months ago, she started waking up early on purpose to walk alone. No dog, no running shoes, just headphones and some excuse about needing clarity before work. Then there were the boundaries. Before, we were relaxed about each other's phones. If mine buzzed and I was cooking, she'd read the text out loud. I'd do the same. But lately, her phone never left her side. Not even for a second. It was always face down on the table. Always locked. Once, I tried to check the weather, just muscle memory. But she reached for it so fast, I felt like I tried to grab a lit match. It's just work stuff, she said, too quickly. We're dealing with a bunch of contract issues, and there's confidential stuff in there. Sure. Work stuff. I nodded at the time. But even that moment, harmless as it seemed, was just another tile in what was starting to look like a pattern. Gifts began to appear. Small ones, then not so small. A bottle of perfume in a brand I'd never heard of. A leather-bound notebook with her initials engraved in gold. Designer sunglasses, the kind she used to call absurdly overpriced. And now suddenly a gift from a client. She explained them away with breezy laughs. Oh, it's just some overcompensating client trying to make up for their bad deadlines. And the perfume? That was from a brand partnership meeting. You know how these people are. I wanted to believe her. But then I noticed something strange in her car. A scent. Not the perfume, something else. Something masculine. It wasn't cologne I recognized, not mine, at least. It was faint, lingering on the headrest. I told myself it could have been anyone. An Uber ride from earlier, a coworker borrowing her car, maybe even an air freshener sample from the dealership. But it lingered, and it wasn't hers. Then there was that weekend trip to her friend Abby's. Abby lived 2 towns over and was the kind of friend Laura usually FaceTimed, not visited. But 3 weeks ago, Laura had packed a small overnight bag, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "It's just a girls' night. Abby needs a break from her kids." Seemed believable enough. But when she got back, I noticed a receipt in the trash. One of those small thermal prints from a restaurant. 2 entrees, 1 wine. The date didn't match what she'd told me. She said they stayed in and ordered Chinese. I held the receipt in my hand for a long time before letting it fall back into the bin. It wasn't damning, but it was wrong. And once you start noticing those wrong things, you can't unsee them. I started to pull at the threads, quietly. I didn't go through her phone, not yet. But I started watching more carefully. When she was on calls, she'd leave the room now. Or talk in the car with the engine running and the door closed. She never used to care if I overheard her meetings, sometimes even asked me to weigh in on her PowerPoint layouts. That openness had vanished. Her calendar started changing too. She always kept it open on the fridge. A shared whiteboard calendar we used to plan the week. Her meetings, my work travel, grocery runs. Suddenly, her end of the calendar got sparse. Blank days replaced blocks of color. I asked once, lightly, "Nothing big this week?" She smiled and said, "Oh, everything's on my work calendar now." I stopped doubling up. It was too confusing. I didn't push. But the more she worked to look like she had nothing to hide, the more it felt like she did. One night, while she was asleep, I stood in the hallway and stared at the bedroom door. I didn't go in. I just stood there, trying to remember the last time I felt sure about her. About us. And the longer I stood there, the more I realized I couldn't pin it down. It wasn't that one thing had broken. It was that dozens of small things had quietly shifted, just out of sight. All those subtle behaviors I once chalked up to stress or change, now they formed a mosaic. Picture I hadn't wanted to see. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I remembered one night, maybe a month ago, when she came home late. She looked flustered. Not panicked, just distracted. Her lipstick was slightly smudged, like she'd wiped it off quickly. Her blouse was buttoned 1 notch higher than usual, and her hair, always styled, looked like it had been quickly redone. "Traffic was brutal," she muttered, dropping her purse on the chair and heading straight to the bathroom. I remember standing in the hallway, waiting for the sink to turn off, trying to tell myself it was all in my head. But it wasn't. I just didn't want to believe it yet. And that's the thing about suspicion. It's not loud. It's not obvious. It's a whisper, a slow unraveling. You can live with it for a while, pretend it's your imagination. But eventually it gets louder. Louder than your excuses. Louder than your hope. Eventually it becomes truth, whether you want it to or not. So I started keeping track. Not like a detective, not yet. Just observing. Dates. Receipts. Phrases she repeated. Her mood on certain days. I kept a note on my phone, innocently labeled work to do. No one would look twice. But inside it I logged each moment that didn't sit right. Each little lie. Each shift in routine. Each time she said one thing and something else told me it wasn't true. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, but I knew I was looking. And that was the moment everything changed. Because once you're in that space, once you go from trusting your partner to watching them, you're no longer in the same relationship. Something's already broken. You're not a husband anymore. You're a silent witness, waiting for confirmation, waiting for a truth you don't want to find, but already expect. And deep down, it's coming. The envelope arrived on a Wednesday. I found it sitting in the mailbox between a grocery flyer and an electric bill. Plain white. No return address. No markings. Just my name on the front, written in all caps with a fine-tip pen. the kind that almost looks like handwriting but cleaner, more deliberate. I turned it over, expecting a sender, a logo, something, but there was nothing, just the weight of it in my hand. Light, but not empty. Back inside, I stood at the kitchen counter, staring at it like it might explode. I thought, for a moment, about not opening it. Maybe it was junk. Maybe it was a mistake. But then I felt that instinct again, the same one that sent me home early that day, that told me to start paying attention in the first place. So I opened it. There were photographs inside. 5 of them. No note, no explanation. Just glossy 4x6 prints. Real photos. Not texted. Not emailed. Not edited with filters or surrounded by captions. Raw and quiet. The first one stopped me cold. Laura. In the lobby of a hotel I recognized, one of those boutique spots downtown with the glass awning and the modern fireplace in the entrance. She was standing beside the man from the reflection. Sam. The coworker she had so casually mentioned. The one who dropped by to talk about closet layouts. He was angled toward her, one hand resting near hers on the counter. She was laughing. Not politely, not forced, and her fingers were grazing his as if they belonged there. The second photo was taken outside. Same man, same hotel. But this time they weren't standing. They were embracing. Her hands were on his back. His chin rested against her temple. And then came the third. In a parking lot, just past sunset. His hand at her cheek. Her lips on his. Not a hesitant kiss. Not a mistake. A choice. The fourth was blurry. They were getting into a car together. His hand on her lower back as he opened the door. Hers on his shoulder. I recognized the jacket he was wearing. The same one I once found hanging on our coat rack. She told me someone had left it at a meeting, and she was returning it the next day. Said it wasn't important. But here it was. On him. With her. The last photo was simple. Just her walking beside him on a city sidewalk, smiling like she didn't have anything to hide. Like she was 25 again, unburdened. I dropped the photos on the counter and stepped back. The room suddenly felt smaller. The air heavier. I hadn't realized I was holding my breath until I let it go in one long, uneven exhale. There it was. The truth. Not suspicion. Not theory. Not a hunch built on receipts and reflections. Proof. And yet, I didn't feel the jolt I thought I would. No burst of rage. No crashing heartbreak. Just silence. Numbness. Because the truth is, when you've been suspecting something long enough, the confirmation doesn't come like a storm. It comes like a ceiling fan you didn't realize was on. Steady, constant, quietly slicing the air above your head the entire time. I sat down at the table, the photos spread in front of me. For a long time I didn't move, didn't cry, didn't curse. I just stared. So this is what it looks like, I thought. This is betrayal. Not in the movies. Not in some dramatic story someone else tells you over a drink. But here, in ink and paper, in colors too sharp to deny. I thought about calling her right then, asking her to come home, throwing the photos down on the counter and demanding an explanation, as if there was one that would make it better. But what would she say? That it wasn't serious? That it was just a mistake? That they were drunk? That it meant nothing? There's a line people cross when they cheat, and then there's everything that happens afterward. The planning, the sneaking, the cover stories, the emotional calculus. What hurt most wasn't the physical part. It was the lies she built to keep me in the dark. The calm way she served dinner. The soft way she kissed me goodbye on mornings she'd go see him. I stood, walked to the sink, and splashed cold water on my face. I thought I'd cry. I didn't. Instead, I felt tired. So very, very tired. When Laura came home that evening, everything felt surreal. She walked in carrying takeout Thai food again. Said something about the delivery app being slow that day. Set the bag on the counter. She kissed me on the cheek, like usual. No hesitation. No guilt on her face. Like nothing in our world had changed. But it had. Only she didn't know it yet. I watched her move around the kitchen, humming to herself, unboxing the containers like it was any other weeknight. She asked me if I wanted water or a beer. I said water. She handed it to me, our fingers brushing. Hers were warm, mine cold. And as she sat down across from me, scrolling through her phone while eating pad thai, I realized something. She didn't feel guilty. Or if she did, she had buried it so deeply, she didn't flinch. That kind of lying. It's a SK*LL. Practiced one. I chewed slowly, swallowed, watched her laugh at something on her screen and turn it toward me. A dog video, something dumb but sweet. I smiled. Or at least I tried. She didn't notice the strain in my face. That night, I sat in my car in the driveway after she went to bed. I just sat there, staring at the front of our house, windows lit dimly from inside, and wondered what part of it was still mine. What part was real? What part had been hers? And what part had always been borrowed, temporary, conditional? Eventually, I walked back inside. The photos were still in the drawer where I'd slipped them. Hidden for now. Not forever. I didn't know what I was going to do yet. Not exactly. But I knew one thing for sure. There was no more doubting. No more benefit of the doubt. No more maybe. Whatever this was between her and Sam, it wasn't a phase. It wasn't harmless. It was deliberate. And it was over. Even if she didn't know it yet. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay beside her, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing, wondering how many times she'd fallen asleep like this after seeing him. It wasn't even rage that kept me awake. Just clarity. A quiet, aching certainty. There was no coming back from this. She stirred sometime after midnight, turned over, and tucked her face into my shoulder like she always did. That used to mean something. It used to be safe, comforting. But now it felt like a performance I hadn't agreed to participate in. Her hand rested on my chest. I let it stay there, unmoving, like letting a leaf fall and settle on the surface of a still lake. By morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. I waited until she left the house. She had a team brunch, whatever that meant now. The second her car pulled out of the driveway, I stood up, exhaled slowly, and walked back into our bedroom. It was strange, how ordinary everything looked. The bed unmade, her slippers by the closet, one of her earrings on the nightstand, forgotten in a rush. I used to find that endearing. I used to think this is what a life together looks like. Now it just felt like evidence. Evidence of someone I no longer recognized. I opened her side of the closet. Her clothes were lined up the way she liked, color-coded, work attire to the left, casual to the right. I took out a medium-sized suitcase from the top shelf. The one she usually used for weekend trips, some of which, I now realized, probably hadn't been solo or with friends at all. I didn't slam anything. I didn't tear through drawers. I folded each piece carefully, the way I knew she liked. I packed neutrals first, then warmer tones. I matched her shoes to her outfits. I even wrapped her jewelry separately, in soft cloth so it wouldn't scratch. It felt less like a goodbye and more like a departure I was assisting with, one she just didn't know she was taking yet. I only packed enough for her to leave, not everything. The basics, the essentials. The rest could be arranged later. I didn't want this to be a war. I didn't want screaming. I wanted distance, space, truth. When the suitcase was zipped and sitting upright by the front door, I placed the envelope on the console table above it. The photos inside were in a plain manila folder now, labeled with her name in the same handwriting that matched the envelope I had received. She had given me her version of the story. Now it was my turn. I didn't write a note. I didn't need to. The suitcase, the folder, and the silence said more than any letter ever could. Then I waited. Not in the living room. Not by the door. I didn't want to see her face when she walked in. Instead, I sat in the backyard with a cup of coffee and a book I wasn't really reading. The air was cool, the kind of crispness you only get in early fall. Leaves whispered in the trees, and somewhere nearby, a neighbor was mowing their lawn. Life was moving forward, even if mine was on pause. I heard the door open. Keys. A pause. Silence. Then a long inhale. She had seen the suitcase. A few seconds later, I heard her footsteps approach the backyard, slow and deliberate. Alex. Her voice was steady. controlled, like she hadn't fully processed what was happening yet, like she still thought maybe she could fix it with a line, a smile, an explanation. I didn't look up right away. I turned a page in the book, eyes scanning words I wasn't absorbing. I saw the stuff inside, she said carefully. Can we talk? I nodded slightly, still not meeting her eyes. She stepped onto the patio, arms crossed, as if the cold had only just started to reach her. Alex, what is this? Why are my things packed? I finally looked at her. You know why? She blinked. No, I really don't. I tilted my head toward the door. There's a folder waiting for you. Take a look. She hesitated, then turned and went back inside. A minute passed. 2. Then the sound of the door again. This time faster, her breath sharper. Where did you get these? I looked at her, and for the first time in days really saw her. Her face was pale. Her hands trembled just slightly. She was still holding the folder like it might burn her. Does it matter? I asked. They're real. Her mouth opened, closed. She looked down, flipping through the photos again as if hoping they might change. As if they'd suddenly offer a different story. I was going to tell you, she said finally, her voice lower. No, you weren't. She looked at me then, something flickering behind her eyes. Anger? Shame? Couldn't tell. She seemed like someone who'd just lost control of the story she was trying to direct. It wasn't serious, she tried. I raised an eyebrow. Which part? The hotel? The kiss? The lies? It was stupid. It got out of hand. I nodded slowly. But it didn't stop, Laura. That's the part that matters. You had chances to end it. You chose not to. She sat down opposite me, suddenly deflated. Her shoulders slumped. Her hands went to her forehead. I didn't want it to be like this. Neither did I said, my voice quiet. We sat in silence for a while. Then she looked up. What now? I think you should leave. Just for now. We can talk later when things are less raw. You're kicking me out? No. I'm giving you the space you already took. She flinched like I'd slapped her. But she didn't argue. A few minutes later, she rolled the suitcase to the car. I watched from the patio, still holding the book I hadn't read. She paused before getting in, looking back like she wanted me to call out to her, to say wait, to undo it all. But I didn't. She got in. The engine started. The car backed out. And just like that, she was gone. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt still, as if something inside me had gone quiet after months of noise. I stood, walked back inside, and closed the door behind me. Then I took a deep breath. And I exhaled. The first thing I noticed after she left was how quiet the house became. Not just silent in the usual sense. Not the absence of conversation or footsteps. This was deeper. Like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Like the air was still waiting for her perfume to fade out of it. I could almost hear where her voice had been, echoing in empty rooms that now felt a size too big. I didn't touch the suitcase by the door for a couple of days. I just left it where she had rolled it back inside. A silent reminder that she had returned only to retrieve more. She took her chargers, a few extra shoes, some files from her home office. She didn't knock. I was upstairs when I heard the sound of the door opening and closing. When I came down, the suitcase was gone. But the quiet, that stayed. The house was mine again, and I didn't know what to do with it. It's strange how many routines are built around someone else's presence. I'd always brewed 2 cups of coffee in the morning, even on days she didn't drink hers until it went cold. I still found myself grabbing 2 mugs by instinct. I still caught myself asking if she wanted toast, even though there was no one there to answer. The bed was easier than I thought it would be. I started making it every morning. Tucked corners, fluffed pillows, tight sheets. Almost military. I wasn't trying to be obsessive. I just needed to feel like something in this house made sense. And maybe, if the bed was neat, if the kitchen stayed clean, if everything had its place, then the parts of my life that had unraveled could be brought back into order too. Her side of the closet remained untouched. For a while. First, it felt wrong to open it. Like I was crossing some invisible boundary. but it was still my house. And the longer I left her things untouched, the more it felt like she was still here, haunting the place with the ghost of what we used to be. So one evening, I poured a glass of whiskey, walked into the bedroom, and slid the closet door open. Her dresses, her heels, the scarf she wore on our last anniversary still hung there, lazily draped on a hanger. I ran my hand across the fabrics, some soft, some sharp, each one tied to a memory, a dinner party, a trip, a Sunday morning spent doing nothing at all. I didn't pack her things that night. I just stood there looking, letting the quiet speak. The next morning, I started with the small things. Her spare toothbrush, her skincare bottles, still lined up like soldiers on the bathroom counter. A drawer full of receipts and pens and tangled chargers. I bought a small box, not a trash bag, something respectful. I wasn't trying to erase her. I was trying to move her out of the frame. Passwords came next. I changed the Wi-Fi, the streaming apps, the shared grocery list, the cloud storage. It was oddly satisfying, like reclaiming a language we once spoke together, now turned into private dialect again. I removed her from the shared calendar, unlinked our bank accounts, disabled the smart speaker from recognizing her voice. One step at a time. That kind of digital separation stings more than people admit. I found myself pausing over her name in my phone more than once. Not to call, just to look. It was still Laura Redheart. The way I'd saved it years ago, when she was new, and we were still getting used to the sound of each other's voices. I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering. Eventually, I removed the heart. Just Laura. Then just the number. Then nothing. She texted me once, 3 days after she left. Hey, just wanted to check in. Hope you're okay. Let me know if you need anything. I didn't answer. She didn't follow up. Some people thought I should have responded, that ignoring her was petty or cold. But here's the thing. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need her to explain. I already had all the answers I needed. There comes a point where words do nothing, where every syllable becomes a delay tactic, a stall, an invitation back into the cycle. And I was done with the cycle. Still, I'd be lying if I said the silence didn't hurt sometimes. Nights were hardest. That's when I remembered the sound of her laugh from the hallway, or the way she used to steal my hoodies even in the middle of summer. That's when I remembered the way we used to dance in the kitchen, slowly, without music, while waiting for the oven timer to beep. That kind of Macy doesn't leave quietly. But the pain changed shape. It stopped being a sharp stab and turned into something duller, something almost bearable. Like a bruise you forget about until you bump into the edge of a table. Some nights I bumped into those memories. Some nights I didn't. And slowly, I began to reclaim things. I bought new sheets, repainted the guest bathroom, rearranged the furniture in the living room, nothing major, just enough to change how the space felt. I planted herbs in the backyard, basil, rosemary, mint. I'd always wanted to, but never got around to it. Felt like building something, like forward motion. Friends started checking in. A few of them had heard through mutuals that Laura had taken some time away. I didn't explain, didn't correct them. Let them fill in the blanks however they needed to. The ones who mattered didn't ask for details. They just showed up with beer or burgers or board games and let me exist without putting on a face. That was enough. Work helped too. I buried myself in tasks, emails, meetings, spreadsheets. It wasn't passion, it was structure. And structure was survival. There was a peace in solitude that I hadn't felt in a long time. I'd forgotten what it was like to walk into a house and feel still. Not tension, not tightness, not the undercurrent of unspoken things. Just stillness, just air, just me. One Saturday afternoon, maybe a week after she left, I stood in the kitchen with a cup of coffee, staring out the window. It was raining, that kind of slow, even rain that makes everything outside look like a watercolor painting. The street was empty. My reflection in the glass was quiet, calm. And I realized something. I didn't feel broken. Not anymore. I wasn't fine. I wasn't healed. But I was clear, like a fog had lifted, and for the first time in months, I could see where I stood. This wasn't a house with a missing piece anymore. It was a house I was learning to fill again, on my own terms. She came back on a Sunday. I just finished folding laundry when I heard the knock. Not loud, just hesitant. I opened the door and there she was, hair tied back, eyes swollen like she hadn't slept. In her hands was a manila folder. "I found some marriage counselors," she said softly. "I thought maybe, if we talked to someone, we could try." For a moment, I just looked at her. The same woman who used to make pancakes on Saturdays. The same woman who had lied to my face and kissed another man like it meant something. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask why now. I just said, "You already tried. When you chose him." She blinked fast, like the word stung. "Maybe they did." "We made vows, Alex," she whispered. I nodded. "Yeah, and you broke them. Not just once. Every time you looked me in the eye and pretended everything was fine." Her hand trembled as she held the folder out. I didn't take it. "I don't want counseling, Laura. I want peace." Silence settled between us. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of it all had finally landed. "I still love you," she said, voice cracking. I stepped back. "I don't think you know what that means anymore." And I closed the door. Weeks passed. Then came the message from someone I never expected. Her name was Marnie. She said she was his wife. "I think our spouses were having an affair," she wrote. "I have proof. I think you do too." We met once, quietly, traded timelines, messages, photos. She was sharp, composed, but you could tell her world had also collapsed. Together, we took it all to HR. The company couldn't ignore it. Office hookups during work hours, travel fraud, lies to supervisors. They were both fired. No ceremony, no severance. Later, at a party, mutual friends, Laura tried to spin the story. Made jokes at my expense. Called me paranoid. Laughed too loud. I didn't react. I stood, picked up my coat, and walked out. And I never looked back. Some endings aren't loud. They're quiet decisions. Mine was simple. Never again.